straighten out. But the pressures of motherhood only made Marnie worse.
Brittany was about 3 months old, and we had got a phone call that Marnie and her boyfriend Pat were out of control, and that Brittany's life was in danger. And if we didn't do something, the ministry would be involved. So we went down to Marnie's apartment, and she was really, really high and out of control, and we apprehended Brittany.
Brittany was adopted by Marnie's parents. She calls them Mom and Dad. Marnie took off to Vancouver and worked the streets of the downtown East Side to feed her heroin addiction, while Brittany grew up thinking Lynn was her mom and Marnie was her sister. When Marnie stopped calling home in 1997, Lynn Frey went looking for her. No one had seen her. But in 2000, a drug addict gave her a clue.
They said, "You're never going to find your daughter. You're never going to find her alive because she's gone to the farm."
In 2002, police descended on a farm in Port Coquitlam. It would become the largest crime scene investigation in Canadian history. Within a few months of sifting through the property, they told the Freys that Marnie's remains had been found there.
Brittany emotionally is going through pure hell. She's trying to find her identity.
I feel disappointed. I feel that kind of ashamed that she's not going to be there when I graduate, and I'm not going to actually be able to grow up with her. She's not going to see me, well, she'll see me grow up, but she's not going to be here in real life.
News of the pig farmer accused of being Canada's worst serial killer made headlines for months. It was even the talk of the schoolyards.
Kids can be very cruel. She was teased unmercifully.
Your mom deserved to have a needle in her arm, and your mom deserved to be chopped up and eaten by a pig, and you're just nothing like, you're just like your mother. So of course, Brittany took that and took it and took it and took it, and finally she exploded.
That student was the first she was caught beating up. There would be more.
And she's just like, one other time she's like, you should stop talking while you're ahead of time, because in farther in life you're gonna end up just like your mom, dead on a pig farm.
Brittany got in a fight with that girl, then was caught stealing a car and stealing from her parents' bank account.
I feel really stupid and dumb and low going to do that. I feel like I was worthless. I felt so bad for the people I did it to. But the one I'm never gonna say sorry for is the one where she would make fun of my mom, and then I had enough of it and I just totally lost it.
For the grandparents who are now trying to raise her, this is all frighteningly familiar. They fear she's taking drugs now too, just like her mother.
You can ask her, and I don't think she'll lie. She's a spitting image of Marnie.
I'm not gonna go that way. I think drugs are just a wrong thing. I don't even know why they're made for people to do. Like, it's a waste of your money, it's a waste of your life. You lose people you love, you lose your friends, you lose yourself. You're just a whole different person when you do that stuff.
But then, a few minutes later, she admits she was high just a few days ago, and that she punched Lynn, bruising her in the face when she didn't get her way.
I see her birth mom in her, every way. Her walk, her talk, her mannerisms, even she's changed her hair color. And looking through a glass mirror to see into her head, I believe she's trying to portray her mom.
And on the eve of what promises to be a disturbing trial about her mother's death, the Freys are afraid she won't be able to handle the story that's about to be told. But what Brittany wants is an explanation. And if anyone is ever convicted in her mother's death, a chance to tell them what the loss has done to her.
I want to know every single detail that happened to her. And I want, when the day comes when you can actually say something to him, I'll be standing right there with my mom saying it.
The first trial of Robert Pickton is expected to take at least a year. After that, another trial will begin. It will deal with the cases of 20 other women Pickton is accused of murdering. And that's News in Review. I'm Carla Robinson. Thanks for watching. It's a war that has been going on for decades in the jungle of Burma, and she's one of its many victims.
It was fighting in our village, and we ran away in the jungle.
But she's lucky. She's on her way to Canada.
See you in Canada.
On News and Review today, the forgotten war in Burma. Hello, I'm Carla Robinson. Burma, also known as Myanmar, is a country of about 50 million people in Southeast Asia. It is bordered by China, India, Bangladesh, Laos, and Thailand, and it has a long coastline stretching from the Sea of Andaman in the south to the Bay of Bengal in the north. It is also ruled by one of the most repressive regimes on earth, a group of generals who wield absolute power and suppress all dissent. Many countries in the world, including Canada, have refused to recognize the military regime. They have also accused the Burmese army of brutal human rights abuses in their long war against some of the country's minority ethnic groups. The Karen people are one of those groups. They make up about 7% of the population of the country, and they have been battling the Burmese military for decades. The CBC's Patrick Brown looks at what has been called the Forgotten War, and at one Karen woman's journey to a new life in Canada.
After 30 years without a home and without a country, Delia C. is getting ready to move for the last time. She was 8 years old when the Burmese army attacked her village one night in 1975. She still remembers the gunfire and explosions as she and her family escaped into the jungle.
It was fighting in our village, and during the night, and the villager, they escaped themselves for safety, and we ran away in the jungle.
For the past 10 years, Delia's lived in this refugee camp in Thailand along with 14,000 other refugees from her native Burma. Now it's time to say goodbye. Delia and her family sit down for a farewell dinner. 11 members of this large extended family will be leaving the refugee camp with her. Others are staying behind. The C family are Christian Karens, an ethnic and religious minority in Burma which has been fighting a civil war with successive Burmese governments for almost 60 years. This river beside the camp is in Thailand, the mountains beyond a Burmese territory. Inside Burma, what happened to Delia C 30 years ago is still happening to villagers today. Thousands of people are desperately trying to reach safety after being driven from their homes by the army. The Karens are the country's largest minority, about 7 million people. When Burma became independent from Britain in 1949, they didn't get the regional autonomy they expected. They've been fighting for it ever since. A humanitarian crisis which has been growing for 6 decades is gathering pace. It's being documented by a group of courageous young Karens who take video cameras into the war zone and bring back the pictures which show the world what's happening there.
If we get calls, we would definitely got killed by the army, the Burmese army.
The Burma Issues video team took enormous risks to film this extraordinary evidence of villagers being forced to build a road for the Burmese army. Philip Thornton, who spent 5 years writing a book on the Karen, says the Burmese army offensive is creating a chronic emergency.
They brought in 3,000 extra troops into the Karen state in this period, and with forced labour build all-weather roads. So for the first time they were able to have a strong offensive against the Karen during the wet season. You know? Yeah. I think the fighting will intensify. I think the land mining will intensify. I think the destruction of crops and the pursuit and the hunting down of villages will intensify.
The Karens have their own armed forces, but the 4,000 soldiers of the Karen National Liberation Army are outnumbered 100 to 1 by the Burmese government military. The Karen side has been observing a ceasefire for the past 3 years, but the Burmese army is taking advantage of it to attack unarmed villages. Author Philip Thornton says the international community is letting the Karens down.
Much to the shame of our world, you know, that we have forgotten or have chosen to ignore the Karen's plight. Burma is an international problem. You know, we have over 1 million economic refugees flooding into Thailand. We have 150,000 people come across into camps. We've got over 600,000 people living in jungle hideouts inside Burma.
So here we have to pass the Thai military post. Yeah. So for you a little need secretly to go.
Okay.
Saw Ramel and Noor Alice belong to a Karen relief organisation based in Thailand. Like the video filmmakers, they take big risks when they slip over the border. Altogether, about 300 backpack medics work in small teams. Travelling on foot and by boat, they often spend several months deep inside Burma. These backpack medical teams provide the only healthcare available inside the Karen region of Burma. This boy has malaria.
Here we just only can treat about the things that we can do as a tropical disease like malaria, diarrhea. He did not recover yet, so he still has fever, and the infection was not gone yet.
With limited supplies of drugs, modest medical training, and unlimited numbers of sick and dying patients, the backpack medics do what they can.
This child is 11 years.
Myalia Tu and her 4 children took 10 days to get here after soldiers attacked their village.
So when I listen...
Noor Simon and her family have just arrived too. Because the camp is inside Burma, these people are not officially refugees. Classified as internally displaced, they can't get the help and resettlement opportunities the United Nations offers to registered refugees who make it to UN camps in Thailand. In this camp, the Karens have to fend for themselves. The Burmese military came to North Simon's village 2 weeks ago. The camp leader, Saw Peter, says all the new arrivals tell much the same story. Once an army post is set up near their village, the killings, robberies, rapes, and forced labor begin.
Karen people also never trust these SPDC troops. Once they got in military camp, first of all, they tried to make these people forced labor, porters, and then they had to pay money. Or that means people long term they could not stay in the military camp together. So at last they have to decide and to move one place. That's me sometimes, unfortunately, some girls or women rape in the camp also.
The camp is home to more than 2,000 people now, and thousands more are on their way.
There were so many people already without medicines, without food, running, hiding, avoiding. That's me. I hope so they will come. Now I have to prepare. Today I have to go back to prepare for the new arrivals.
So Peter heads off up the river, hoping to persuade other Karen leaders to provide more help for the flood of people he's expecting. Back at the refugee camp in Thailand, the big day has finally come. Delia C., her 6 children, 3 brothers, and more than 100 other people are leaving for Canada. The C family's going to Vancouver. Others are going to Edmonton, Winnipeg, and Toronto. Before leaving, the refugees need warm coats and shoes. Not so much to prepare for the Canadian winter, but for their first exposure to air conditioning in airports and planes.
Juice. Juice. Orange juice. Orange juice.
They also attend an orientation class on what to expect on the journey. Earlier groups refused to eat or drink on the plane because they didn't like the look of the food or they were afraid they'd have to pay for it. Delia's brothers, Mathura, Juice and Darius, passed their health checks. They'd been a little anxious because some departures have been delayed for medical reasons. Juice, who's 21, hopes he can become a doctor himself one day. Darius wants to be a geologist, but at first he'll take any job he can get. At last, it's time to move off. Delia waves goodbye to family and friends. And goodbye to the virtual prison of life behind the refugee camp gate. This dusty jungle track leads straight to Vancouver and a new beginning. The pickup truck and the jungle track already far behind them, Delia and her family sleep through their first ever bus ride. Roll down the freeway to the 21st century, to a world of glass and concrete and neon lights. At the airport, there's more waiting, more anxious moments, and of course, more paperwork. Officials guide them through the formalities of international travel.
Don't forget that. Yes, inside Canada. Very, very important.
Yes, thank you.
Forget.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you in Canada. Bye.
At the age of 40, Delia C. leaves behind a lifetime of jungles and camps and steps through the door to a new world. Patrick Brown, CBC News, Bangkok.
2,000 other Karen people will also be heading for a new life in Canada this year. And the Canadian government continues to demand an end to what is now the longest-running civil war in the world. It wants the generals to begin peace talks with the Karen people and other minority groups and restore democracy to the country. And that's News in Review. I'm Carla Robinson. Thanks for watching. Master of the new Russia, a man so popular they sing disco songs about him. But his critics say that Vladimir Putin is taking Russia back to the USSR.
Everything that Russia had that would have made it a democracy has been systematically and very purposefully destroyed.
On News in Review today, fear and repression in Russia. Hello, I'm Carla Robinson. When the Soviet Union crumbled in 1991, many hoped that freedom would replace repression in the new Russia. For a while, it looked like that was happening, but not anymore. Under President Vladimir Putin, there has been a clampdown, Soviet style. Although he was democratically elected, Putin's opponents have accused him of acting like a modern-day czar. A number of his critics have been mysteriously murdered. Others have been intimidated, and the country's media has been turned into a government propaganda machine. The CBC's Don Murray looks at how the Kremlin uses film and television to silence its opponents and turn Putin into a celebrity or cult figure.
Outside lies the cold, unequal universe of Russia. Inside, the warm and false world of Russian cinema. Like the country, it's rising again after political and economic collapse. Audiences again want to watch 19th century detectives solve elegant murders. Not Hollywood, not Bollywood, Moscow. Russia booms thanks to oil. Almost every week, the country's film aristocracy gathers for a new premiere. Russia has become Europe's fastest-growing film market. This man said that film was Russia's most important art. He was Lenin, the savage founder of the Soviet Union. His state would use film to praise patriotism, encourage sacrifice. The state has changed, the aim has not. Russia's film industry now cannibalizes the Soviet past for new hits like Dr. Zhivago. It began as a dissident novel. It's now a huge made-for-TV series. Another look at the Soviet past based on another dissident book, Not by Bread Alone, the story of an honest scientist battling corrupt Communist Party bosses. Veteran filmmaker Stanislav Gaverukin directed it. He sees film as a calling to restore lost honor to the people of a once great country.
Movies are still the most important of the arts. Use them to awaken kindness and dignity in young people. From an early age, try to instill in them the meaning of honor and self-esteem.
Viktor Shenderovich is another well-known Russian director and performer. His is a much